Can't tell where I am. Looking at a photograph already?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
I
that's
can
a
take
little
us back.
premature, actually.
I'll take it.
All right. I
You ready?
can't tell where I am.
There you
I
are.
guess I'm in there someplace.
You are.
Oh, okay.
All right. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
All right, here we go.
Here we go. Okay, well, hello, everybody out there. And thanks to the Carpenter Boat Shop and Alicia for the opportunity to be here. I think the Carpenter's Boat Shop is quite the deal. If you're out there in Zoom land and you don't know anything about it, you might want to check it out because they've been doing a lot of good work here. And this is the 45th year, I guess, coming up that they've been doing it. So it's an established organization and been doing good stuff ever since. So when this whole topic came up, this idea came up of giving this chat, I asked Alicia, so what? You know, what am I supposed to do here? What am I supposed to talk about? And she said, oh, just talk, she said, just talk for 45 minutes. And really, just talk. And, well, I could do that and have done such things. But when it gets down to telling sea stories or sea lies, as some people call them, it usually involves rum, and we don't happen to have any here this evening. So I don't think. She's got someone at the desk. I don't know. At any rate, so I'm going to try to avoid telling a whole lot of sea lies. There'll be a few sneak in, I suppose. But so anyway, what the idea was, I thought, well, this is here in the main mid-bleak winter days, and some people are probably thinking that sailing would be the thing to do. I am, and other people are maybe even doing it out there. But anyway, we're all thinking about it one way or the other. And the thought came to mind is some people may be actually thinking, or maybe already have, or getting close to the idea of sailing for pay and how that might happen. So it seemed to me like a good topic to bring up, sailing for pay. So you want to go sailing for pay? Really? Everybody wants to go sailing, but for pay, that's a little different. So that's kind of what the idea is. We'll have a kind of a 3 different sections here. We're going to talk about the type of sailing we're talking about here for pay, because there's a lot of different ways you can go that way. Then how you might go about doing such a thing. And then finally, various opportunities, if we have enough time to get into some of those. We'll talk about the opportunities. But I didn't have any idea when I first started sailing that you could do it for pay. I grew up in North Florida and sailing around the Gulf of Mexico and right along the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, family boats. But sailing for pay, I never even considered. That wasn't the thing you did there in North Florida. Around these parts, of course, it's a little different, but down south there in the Florida area, sailing for pay wasn't really something anybody did. They sail for fun. So that's what I did, sailing for fun. And I didn't know anything about the pay part of it. So the first thing I guess we need to talk about is what kind of sailing we're discussing here, at least I'm talking about. And kind of eliminating the whole commercial ship tugging, that type of aspect of it. That's a whole different realm. If you're going tugging or deep sea shipping, that type of thing, that's a different realm. So we'll steer clear of that and talk more about the actual sailing. Maybe like a few power yachts might slip in there someplace, but it's mostly small boat sailing, relatively small boat anyway. And that's the type of sailing that I'll be talking about. So the idea is we get into what the type of sailing that you all or whoever out there might be interested in doing. And so that's kind of the first question you need to think about. So in other words, where are you actually, what's your experience? Where are you coming from? What do you want to do? That has a lot to do with how old you might be and what sort of experience you've had, what type of lifestyle you might be involved with, and how much freedom you have, how much time you have, if you have dependents or not, that type of thing. I mean, what can you do, in other words? And then another topic would be kind of what you want to get out of it. Do you want to go on adventures? Do you want to go deep sea? Do you want to go for just a little bit? Do you want to go for a longer bit? Do you want to actually make a career out of it? What do you want to do? That's another aspect of this whole thing of what type of sailing you want to do. And then finally, we get down to the topic, pay. So what is your parameters there? You want to make a lot of money? You not want to make any, or you won't make any money? You want to just go volunteer? What is your pay requirements? You might have more freedom that way than others, depending on just how much you can, how much you need to survive and get paid. So those are the kind of the parameters there. What type of selling? Where are you? What is your experience? What do you want out of it? And then pay wise, what can you afford to do? Some jobs pay a whole lot more than others, and some don't pay anything at all. So what's that all about? So then we get into how you start in this realm. Some of you may have already started. Maybe you've sailed your whole lives long and have lots of experience. But if you're not, if you're just starting out like I was back when I didn't know anything about getting paid to go sailing, eventually, how do you get started in this whole thing? And how do you make the connections? In other words, how do you get the experience to even have somebody think that you might be a good candidate to go sailing? So there's, I think, probably 4 different ways you can get your foot in the door, so to speak. And the first one would be to volunteer. And that's what I did. I mean, you find if you just wander around a boatyard long enough and pester people long enough, like in a Sunday afternoon yacht club race or something like that, you might find yourself volunteering on somebody's boat. And so that way you can get your foot literally afloat, so to speak, in the door, volunteering. Another way is to become a trainee on a sea education vessel, pay your way on, in other words, especially on a boat that's specializing in educational aspects. And we'll talk about that quite a bit, sea education. So a lot of folks can do that. And I've known a lot of students that we've had on the various boats I've been involved with, who have gone on and become paid mariners. Some of them have gone on for having a whole career out of it, and others maybe a shorter time. But one way or the other, that's one way to get going, is getting some good experience, is to be a trainee on one of the educational vessels. You can also go to an academy, a maritime academy. Of course, we have one right here in Maine Maritime, or a trade school. There's around too. We have several good ones here in New England. Go there and you get your credentials, get sea time, get experience, get training, and then you'll have some experience there and some skills that might get you in the door. We're always looking for engineers, for instance. We're also, of course, always looking for cooks, and then naturally licensed mates and even just experienced deckhands. So getting your way through that way. And then the fourth way, I think, is another way for some people, not too many, but some get through into the military. In other words, Coast Guard or Navy, get sea time with those two, and then that can morph into a job on a boat. This is all about just basically getting experience and then making connections. So those are 4 ways that it can get into it all. So moving along, how did I do it? I mean, how did I get in? I mean, I've been doing this thing for quite a long time now. Again, starting out, going through school there, or growing up in North Florida on the Gulf of Mexico coast, then going to college near Tampa Bay. That's where I went to college for 4 years, and that college happened to have a sailing club, so I actually was a member of that. In fact, you might say that I majored in sailing at that college. I minored in what I was supposed to be doing, which was biology. I was a biology major, but I found it much more interesting, and I was much more an enthusiastic sailor than an organic chemistry student, let's put it that way, which meant that I spent more time there in college than some people did, but I eventually got out of it. But while the sailing was going on, I was major in sailing. I sailed all over Tampa Bay, and eventually that got into sailing into Gulf of Mexico and some ocean racing. Eventually, actually doing some racing up on the Great Lakes. The Chicago Mackinac race, did a couple of those. Anyway, it got me into some bigger boat offshore time. But again, as a volunteer, I wasn't getting paid to do that. And I still didn't know that you could get paid for doing this stuff. So time goes by, and I finally got out of college with my sailing major and biology minor. And then what? Well, I didn't have much choice at that time. The period of time, it was a fairly active period of time in the late 60s. So I found my first paying job at sea. And what was it? Let's see if I can bring it up here. Oh, let's see.
I got this.
Here it comes. There we go. Oh, that's my first paying job at sea. Yeah. Well, that was okay. It's not quite the sailing project that we were talking about, but it was definitely at sea and it was definitely for pay. So deck officer on a destroyer. We were guarding the Mediterranean and the Caribbean. Well, some other folks were over there in Vietnam at the time, but this is what we were doing. We were guarding the back door, so to speak. So that was a different sort of experience. So about 3 years doing that as a deck officer, and I finally got off of that job and over in the Mediterranean, and I began what I call my vagabond days. So I traveled all over the place, way out in the Far East and all about and so forth. And enough of that. We won't talk about that too much because, again, that bottle of rum really isn't. No, there's no bottle of rum. So we can't get into those sea stories. But I did get to my next paying at sea job, and that was this boat, right? Whoops, that's not what I did. There, that one, yes. So that's a Swedish ship, Swedish American line. I became a merchant Swedish mariner, but I wasn't doing too much marinating, so to speak. I was there pot walloping in the crew galley and being a deck steward. But it was a good job, and I was on board almost better part of a year on board that ship, traveling all over the place. And just to balance that out, my next paying at sea job was with this one, which is quite a different balance. This was a squid trawler, so I joined the Spanish Merchant Marine to be on this one. And I was on this one about a half a year. We were squid fishing off the coast of Africa, Sahara Espanol, which was now called Morocco, but then it was a Spanish colony. Anyway, we fished out there and for squid mostly. And that went on for about 6 months. That was a paying job. But again, it's not quite what I was initially thinking about in terms of the sailing part. It was good. We had some good times on that. Yeah. Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah. Yeah, that was, we did quite a bit of using the porron there. Anyway, yeah, lots of good eating on that boat too, Spanish style, of course. So anyway, that was for a while, and then it came time. This is my vagabond times, remember? So after about another couple years or so being a vagabond and doing these different boating jobs, it was basically time to get back over on the other side of the Atlantic. It's this side of the Atlantic, out of the Mediterranean. So I looked around and managed to hitchhike on a sailing vessel, a big catch, hitchhiked across from Gibraltar over to Puerto Rico, and whoops, next one over there. Yeah, one more. There we go. So that was my job was navigating. So this was back in the good old days, of course. It was all celestial stuff. Didn't have anything. This was so that got me across the Atlantic. So finally we end up on this side again, and here I am now. It's how old was I then? I was about 30 years old, I think, and sitting on the beach and wondering now what's going to happen. 30 years old was kind of should be getting a real job by this time, right? None of this vagabonding around, not really. So I found myself working on some research vessels. So I did that for several years, made on research vessels, again in the Gulf of Mexico and the Bahamas. And then one morning, I was on my research vessel having my morning coffee in Key West. Yes, Tom, Key West. Looking out in a channel there as I sipped my morning coffee, and all of a sudden emerged from practically on my front door this image, this vessel which came zipping through the anchorage there and on out to the Gulf of Mexico, and it was a jaw-dropping experience. And here is what I saw when I was having my morning coffee going by. A full-out brig wait a minute, I said to myself, what in the world do we have here? This is in Florida, you don't see these kind of things, at least you didn't have much in Florida. There's a lot of plastic sailboats down there. You don't really see something quite like this, but it was an experience. I remember, I never will forget having my coffee and seeing this. All of a sudden, I didn't know anything about this boat. Where does this come from? What is this all about? Well, it turns out it was the brig Unicorn. And when I first saw that boat, I decided, okay, this is something I've got to try. So within a few months after that, I put in my resignation on the research vessel and I volunteered aboard Unicorn. So that's where it all kind of got started. That was my first real boat, so to speak. And I was a volunteer, but surprisingly, it didn't take long. There was different, lots of work was going on the boat, and it was kind of sorting itself out. I ended up spending 3.5 years on Unicorn, and starting out as a volunteer, I ended up the last year I was the captain of it. So there you go. Stick around long enough, and you too can be a captain, I guess. But we did a lot of sailing, sail out of Tampa Bay all the way up, several trips up to New England, including Maine. My first sailing into Maine in this boat, and all over the place. Lots of good experiences. Some of the crew we still keep up today in this boat, crew from Unicorn days. So that was the real coming of age experience for me. So once I got hooked up with this boat, there was really no turning back. We also, this boat's idea of it was to be an educational vessel. We took students out, so developed a whole program for sea education. They didn't have anything to start off with. It was a yacht before I got on board, change of ownership, and we turned it into an educational vessel. So we took college kids out and all kinds of different folks out and developed a sea educational program on board. So that went on for, like I say, 3.5 years, lots of sailing, lots of teeth gnashing, lots of trying to find money to keep it going, all kind of organizational issues and so forth. And eventually the whole organization kind of folded into itself, and the boat went away to do charter down out of St. Lucia, and I went away. Left from Florida, which was based, this boat was based in Tampa. And then, so where am I going to go now? I thought, well, I've been to Maine in this boat, and I knew some folks in Maine. So I said, well, that's where the boats are. So I came up to Maine and did some sailing on the Maine Windjammers. I got sort of a passenger guest pass on some of the boats, Grace Bailey, Mercantile, and got to know some of those boats, Adventure, so forth, sailing around for that particular summer while I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next. So here we go. Right now, the kind of looking at this thing, we ended up sailing in yachts for a while. So I was involved in several different yachts, nice yachts, of course. Why would you sail in an ugly boat? I didn't like sailing in ugly boats. So I found some yachts to go sailing in. I was sailing in, oh wait, got another Unicorn picture. I think you see a very dramatic shot there. Yes, that guy on the bow is actually yelling at the photographer. He's about ready to get run over. That's what he's yelling. It was a good photograph. But anyway, so yes, next came yachts. So we can, first one was not that one. That's never was a yacht. That one. So that one there. This one here is called Fair Saray, the knockabout schooner. We had fun sailing that one all through the Caribbean, up the East Coast, including several match races. Not that there was any kind of a race, but sailing along with Adventure, another knockabout schooner, with this boat was kind of a fun thing to do. Match racing with, or match sailing, I should say. No race. Adventure always sailed a lot faster than any boat I was on. But so yeah, I sailed on this one. It was we had quite a bit of yacht charter people on board, and then just basically sailed all over the place. Ended up sailing it over to San Francisco as a grand finale on that boat. That was a nice boat. And then moved into another yacht. This one here was a really nice boat, Pierre. Now it's called Ashanti. Still sailing. This was quite the experience because we had a kind of a unique cruise plan for this one. This was mostly a yacht. It was mostly for the owner's pleasure and the company of the owner's pleasure. Sailed in the Mediterranean in the summers and in the Caribbean in the winters, which meant a couple of transatlantics each year. So that was okay. With sailing with yachts, I found there's most of the owners of yachts, at least of this ilk, have got to be kind of crazy people. I mean, you have all this money and you put it into a boat, you got to be a little bit touched, I think. So when I always advise people about the yachting side of sailing, you got to think about a couple of things. First of all, you got to find the right boat, of course, and it's got to be a nice looking boat, in my view. And of course, I like traditional boats. So first of all, you look for the right boat that seems to suit you. Then you sort of think about what that boat is doing. Is it sitting at the dock all the time? Which a lot of them do, sit at the dock all the time. Where's it going? What's its program? Then you look at the owner, as much as you can tell, and see just what sort of deal you're getting into with the owner. If the owner's going to be on board all the time, or what sort of owner you got. So that can be complicated. Anyway, and then it usually pays pretty well. So that part's all right. So I was lucky. I had good luck with this particular boat. And we went to some lots of interesting places, like this next shot here, going through the Corinth Canal, for instance. We spent a lot of time in Greece and Turkey in the summers, and going through the Corinth Canal is kind of a unique thing. I'm going right through the middle of the bottom part of Greece. So that's kind of a neat thing to do. That's part of the adventurous side of life there. So anyway, that program, as so many things do, ended. Boat ended up being tied up and was going to be sold. So got off that boat, back to the States again, and just kind of hove to, so to speak, waiting for the next thing to happen. And now I was on, how old was I this time? Oh, I was getting to be 40 years old now. We're talking about the mid 80s. Yeah, 40 years old, and I really think really need to be doing something besides this yachting around things. So all of a sudden, what should appear but a brand new boat just built, Spirit of Massachusetts, built in '84, launched in June of '84 in Boston, replica of a Edward Burgess fishing schooner of the 1890s, pretty much a replica anyway. So she was built to be a sea educational vessel. So I signed on board that one, and I stayed with that one for quite a while. In fact, a lot of me is still on that boat, even though it's not tied up in Kennebunk as a restaurant, but we won't get into that. Spirit of Massachusetts has a lot of history there, and with the different organizations that have owned it, all doing mostly educational programs. So we sailed that one a lot, and yeah, a lot of history. Let's see, I can't remember. We've got another. Yeah, one of the bits of the history is got married on that boat, and eventually had families sail on that boat quite a bit too. So that's neat. Anyway, Spirit of Massachusetts, and then what happened? We ended up. Oh yes, there was a hiatus there a little bit. Spirit kind of came and went, and eventually speaking of the family part, that's a trouble with these boats. If you really get into it, you really don't have much time to do family type things because you're on the boat all the time. I mean, like that Marie Pierre boat, the one that went back and forth across the Atlantic. I was on that boat for 2 solid years. I think I had 5 days off in 2 years. 5 days I wasn't on the boat. So it's rather all consuming. So here it comes in. We're living in Maine now, and I have a daughter is about ready to show up. Her daughter did show up, and I said, I want to actually be at home more. So I decided I got to find a job that's going to keep me more at home. So what should I find? Of course, well, there's the Maine windjammers, and there's the boats that sail out of Rockland and Camden and so forth. Well, I didn't do one of those. I did this one instead, Pauline. This was a sardine carrier that got converted into a passenger carrying vessel, which looks like an old-time steamboat. Really neat conversion. So in this one for 3 years, thinking that I was going to spend a lot of time at home. Well, surprise, surprise, it's not quite that simple. When you're running one of these boats, you're not too much at home during the summertime, at least. It's fairly all-consuming. But the winter times were good. So there was that. So this is my motorboat time, again, for hire for this one, running this boat. we only had pea pods on that, so we did a lot of rowing too, in terms of getting the passengers around. Pauline's a neat boat. Anyway, we kept on going along there, so Pauline provided an opportunity to get out and away in the winter times and do some other sailing. So I again went back and forth to Superior, Massachusetts a bunch of times down in the Caribbean. Eventually the family got to be old enough that they could come along. So that was good. Also, when Pauline ended up, that kind of put me out there again and sailing some other boats like this one, Gazella Primera, or Gazella Philadelphia, as it's called now. Barkentine, which is tied up there in Philadelphia, which is still sailing, and had a great sail in that one. And I was fortunate because I got probably the premier sail of anybody who's been on that boat for a long time. We got to go to New Orleans from Philadelphia and back again to do a movie. So that was a neat thing to do. Let's see what happened after that one. We got over to doing, whoops, yeah, I guess I can't track here what I'm doing. Yeah, so again, back to short time stuff. So after Pauline, I kind of jumped around a bit, but I got involved with Harvey Gamage here, and also with Bill of Rights, another Gamage built vessel, which is now on the West Coast. So with Bill of Rights, which looks a little bit like Gamage, a lot of people think. That was with another educational program, but a little bit different one, Vision Quest, which was for juvenile delinquents or youth at risk. Well, they were more than at risk. They were actually incarcerated. But at any rate, so we sail with these youths on board, and that was turned out to be a really good program. Sail with a family a lot on that one, which the grandparents were really curious about how it would take their grandchildren out here with a bunch of juvenile delinquents at sea. But it turned out that in actuality, they were probably safer on that boat with all these, quote, juvenile delinquents looking out after them, which they did. They had just totally adopted the kids, and they were very, very well attended, so to speak. So that was great. On and off again with Bill of Rights. Eventually, Bill ended up, and within the same day, I think I'm unique in saying that in one day I was skipper of Bill of Rights in the morning, and in the afternoon, Harvey Gamage. Two Gamage built schooners in the same day. I don't think anybody else can say that. I may be wrong, maybe. But anyway, two of them in the same day. So there was Gamage. Gamage was the beginning of something really long. It became eventually called the Ocean Classroom Foundation. Gamage was the first boat in the Ocean Classroom Foundation. And that went on for quite a while. That's what Alicia comes into it eventually. With other people too. So Ocean Classroom Foundation ended up with 3 boats, 3 schooners. Let's see, are they going to show up here? No, here they are. The one in the middle with the yards, that's not one of the Ocean Classroom boats. That happens to be, they're in Mystic. So that's the Morgan. But you have westward over to the left. In the middle, there is Gamage, and then finally Spirit of Massachusetts, and we're all tied up there in Mystic. So Ocean Classroom ran these 3 boats. Ocean Classroom existed for about 20 plus years and did only sea education programs, and a lot of them all over the place, well, all over the eastern seaboard and the Caribbean anyway. Lots and lots of students, lots and lots of crew, many of whom are still sailing today as professional folks, and many of whom are sailed shorter stints. But anyway, a lot of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of folks went through these 3 boats through Ocean Classroom. So that was the bulk of the career. After Ocean Classroom finally folded due to financial concerns and trying to take care of old wooden boats and one steel one, then it put me on the beach again. So, but by this time I was no longer 40 years old, so I had to show a little bit more freedom, shall we say. So then I get involved in these short runs, basically. Like I say, this is a whole different type of sailing. People would give me a call, says, "Can you come and give us a hand for a month or so?" And so, sure. So Lady Washington out here on the West Coast, another brig, quite different from Unicorn, but and a whole lot better sailor, quite honestly, than Unicorn. They Washington, beautiful boat, works out of Grays Harbor there in Washington State, and sailed quite a bit, so that was good. Another, Lady Washington like to do spectacular things like have cannon fire and so forth. She's shooting her cannon off here right next on the next shot there. She's going to shoot a cannon off. Is that right? Let's see if we can get a cannon to shoot from Lady Washington.
Next one.
Photograph there. Kaboom. Oh yeah, smoke ring too. Yeah, that's
Wow.
all. Monterey, we're shooting at Monterey, the fort at Monterey. Yeah, Lady Washington. So yeah, that's neat because now I'm in this short term kind of running thing, so I can do things like Lady Washington, or I can do the next one here. This is Matthew Turner out of Sausalito. That's a nearly brand new boat. I think it's only been running about 4 seasons now. So that's the Matthew Turner, another neat boat. And then Roseway, yeah, Roseway. So this is a whole nother kind of a run now. We go from short runs into a different aspect of this sailing for pay thing. Which remember, we're still talking about sailing for pay, trying to bring this into the present tense. But anyway, Roseway, World Ocean School's Roseway, presently sitting in Mystic waiting to be rebuilt because she is 100 years old next year. Don't we all need to be rebuilt about that time? Yeah, maybe a couple of times before then. At any rate, Roseway, World Ocean School running out of Boston and St. Croix. And the other boat that they're running right now is, you're very good at pushing the buttons. Oh, there's a nice Roseway sunset there in the Caribbean. You got to have a sunset trip here in all these photographs, right? At some point, you can't miss that. So there's. Oh, that's some sound effects. Anyway, now we're looking at Dennis Sullivan sitting there in the real view of Dennis Sullivan. Let me swing back and take a little bit closer view of Dennis Sullivan before we get involved in this one here. Or do you want to look at this one now?
No, let's go back.
Anyway, there she is, three-masted schooner, World Ocean School again. That's St. Croix. That's where the boat is right now. In fact, that's where I'll be exactly 24 hours from now. Yes, I'm escaping to go down to St. Croix tomorrow. At any rate, so Dennis Sullivan, neat boat, three-masted schooner built on the Great Lakes, and now run by World Ocean School down again, St. Croix and in Boston. So let's look at this video here that we nearly looked at just a minute ago. Very interesting. Dennis Sullivan doing the thing. That's right. Yeah, very inspiring for everybody, I think. Let's look at the next photograph or two, too. So what these two, this is again on Roseway, but Dennis Sullivan says the same thing. So World School has these programs, and it's kind of a neat thing, really. They've been running for close to 20 years now, this out of St. Croix with all the school kids. So just about probably, I'm sure every school kid in the whole island has been at sea on board either Roseway or Dennis Sullivan. Practically next generation is, I would think. So yeah, on board programs like that, couple a day. So the boats are busy sailing in and out of St. Croix, Christiansted there, sometimes 3 times a day, 2-hour sails, a lot of onboard programs. And take a look at, I think we got another picture of some students sailing along. And they get involved. So that's a good thing. So that's the same thing in Boston in the summertime. So a lot of interactive programs there, the sea educational programs they do. Then what do we have? Volunteering. Yes. Well, here's one. This is brand new, of course. This is what I call Virginia Sagadahoc. I like to call her Sagadahoc. Say the name. She was built on the Sagadahoc, which is, of course, the Kennebec River. Anyway, yes, Virginia, built right there in Bath, and just started sailing last summer. So that's where I've been most recently. So here we go. Finally got to the present tense. And even without the rum. So what I can say at this stage in game is, in terms of my experience, you've seen that kind of ticked off some of the realms of how you get involved. Volunteering kind of morphed into, well, there was some military time there with the Navy, but it's really kind of started off with volunteering there on the Unicorn Project, and it kind of went on along. I mean, got Coast Guard license, and once you start getting your experience in licensing and so forth, the doors open up. So it's been a challenging career, which has been a good thing. Lots of interesting boats. Again, no ugly boats, only good-looking boats, and very satisfying programs with the educational aspect of it, and pretty good travel. Get to see lots of new places and old places too, for that matter, and longevity. I mean, I'm still doing it. Here I am, as long as they keep hiring me. So enough of this story here. Let's move on to the next thing here. We got, run out of time here. Going on and on here. So let's see what we got. Opportunities. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about opportunities. So I'm going to try to be quick here a little bit, some of these opportunities. So what do we have here? You can do weekend sailing and no pay, right? Just going to another yacht club, go sailing around. You can do deliveries. There's a good business in doing boat deliveries. That has its own issues. Stepping on a brand new boat that you don't know with that can bring issues, but hopefully you have time to check them out first before you get out there. But boat deliveries, that can pay pretty well too. You can figure out how to do just summer times, maybe. We have a lot of opportunities with that, and a lot of boats are looking for summertime help, sometime crew members and so forth. Naturally, we have the main windjammers right here. We have especially Rockland and Camden that are always looking for crew for the summers, and a great way to get into the business there with some of the boats. There's a lot of hands-on work there, and real sailing, so to speak. So that's a great opportunity for folks. And then there's other boats like, say, Pride of Baltimore, and quite a few other ones I can think of that are always looking for hands for the kind of summertime work mostly, or short time. You have the Maritime Academies, Maine Maritime again with Bowdoin, heading off to the northernmost regions off of Greenland this very summer. So that's going to be great. But of course, the students are Maine Maritime students, but you can eventually get out of that Maine Maritime with a 500-ton oceans license, which is worth quite a bit with their small boat program, if you wish. There's Ernestina too, working out of the Massachusetts Maritime now. I know they're looking for crew. You got a notice for them, looking for a chief mate right now. Again, now, and then how do you find out about some of these programs? Well, this is where these things that Alicia was mentioning right here. Can you see that? That's the American Sail Training Association's handbook. And if you join up with the American Sail Training Association, you too can have one of these books. And then it lists all the members, names and numbers, all about them, how you get in touch. If you remember, you get to the billet bank, and it's the crew member, the boats put up needs. We need a deckhand, or we need a cook, or we need a whatever. You go to that billet bank and find out job opportunities. So that's a good one. American Sail Training Association, they do a conference. They're going to be doing one here in just a few weeks every year, where a lot of crew information comes through these, and how you get a license. And it's a really good resource. The Tall Ships America is. And then there's various magazines. One of my favorites is this one, Sea History. So Sea History has always got really interesting articles. And in the back, it tells it's kind of a boatyard section, where the boats are, what they're doing. Again, keeps you up to date as to what's happening on the waterfront. So those are some good resources. Let's see. Then we have those are some, you might be looking for year-round opportunities. So there's some boats that are doing that. There are some organizations doing that. And come to mind is SEA, Sea Education Afloat out of Woods Hole, with the Korth Kramer and the Seamans. Korth Kramer on the East Coast and the Seamans out in the Pacific. That's a good place to go. Again, World Ocean School, they're kind of unique. Most of their crew members are through AmeriCorps, which is a little different. But if you're an AmeriCorps person, you can spend a year aboard with those World Ocean School and get some incredible experience. And World Ocean School does hire professional crew too, captains, mates, cooks, engineers. So if you're one of those type of people, you might find yourself with World Ocean School. Seamester out of the Florida is the headquarters, but they run the Ocean Star out of the down around the Caribbean, short run stuff, and they run Vela and Argo, which is worldwide. They go all over the place. Those two big schooners. Again, Grays Harbor. Normally with Lady Washington, she's doing a year-round work, but hasn't lately. But normally they do a trip all the way down the California coast, all the way to Southern California. Call of the Sea. That's the Matthew Turner and the Seaward out of Sausalito. I don't think they're doing year-round right now, but they probably will be. They want to, with Matthew Turner, and Seaward has in the past. So, and then there's the St. George School with Geronimo. That one's looking for crew from time to time. That's a good program, all over the place in a smaller boat. And then we go into the seasonal boats, but we're out of time here. Seasonal boats, yeah, we have everything. You can think of a whole lot of different seasonal boats. That's where most of them are actually. Adventurous out in the West Coast, the Irving and X.E. Johnson down out of Los Angeles. Adventure, of course, right here in Gloucester. I know they're looking for crew for this summer. Picton Castle, which is going around the world right now. That's quite an experience to have there in Picton Castle. The Mirwald there down in the Delaware Bay, the Bayshore Center. Niagara there in the Great Lakes out of Erie. Then there's the Living Classroom right there in Baltimore too. They have some programs that they're doing. On and on it goes. Sultana, Clearwater, Calamar Nickel, they're all in the book. Take a look in the Tall Ships America book and then list them there. So there you have it. Again, you might do different. You might get your training there at a trade school, the Maritime Academy. You might go to right here, Carpenter's Boat Shop.
That's right.
Yeah. The Prentice Shop over in Rockland too. They can get good training there for carpentry projects. There's always the military again. And the landing school right here in Maine as well is another good trade school to go to get started. But again, a good way to get going is just simply volunteering. And one way you can do that, well, we have Maine's first ship. Again, Virginia of Sagadahoc. I'd like to promote that one. I've been involved in that one here lately. In fact, that's Virginia right there in that picture with her big helm there. And let's see if we can get another picture of Virginia. Neat boat. And they're increasing their program to go a little bit further than the Kennebec River. We get out and go to Booth Bay Windjammer Days and a few other things, but it's a program built for 10, 12 years now, well, 11 years anyway, by volunteers exclusively, and basically run mostly by volunteers now. We're starting to get into a few paid positions, but it's mostly volunteer run, but a great place to get some experience and learning how to sail a really funky boat. But we're trying to figure out how to sail it right now. So she'll be sailing more this coming summer. So that's right here in Bath, sailing in that one. So there you have it. A lot of different choices, a lot of different opportunities, and not even a ton of love to go along with it. So that'll come later, I think. At any rate, so if people have questions, I think we're right on the mark for question and answer time.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That was awesome. What about Outward Bound?
There's Outward Bound.
There's always Outward Bound.
This is hardly a total summation of all the different opportunities. I forgot all about Outward Bound. Yeah, they put a lot of good people, a lot of experience there. Alicia's been involved with Outward Bound right here out of Rockland, but all up and down the coast. Yeah. If you want to be in a pulling boat and live with how many people?
Up to 10.
10 people on a pulling boat for a week upon week, sleeping on oars in the misty fog and so forth.
Yeah.
Quite an experience.
Quite an experience. I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
JB, in all of your time at sea on schooners, brigs, and brigantines, did you ever have any serious mishaps like capsizing or hitting a ledge?
Hitting a ledge, capsize. No capsizes, thank you. Are you suggesting that I've gone aground? Hitting a ledge sounds pretty dramatic. I don't think I've hit a ledge, but got to be honest. I mean, if somebody asks you if you've done any sailing, you say, have you ever gone aground? And so there's only three answers, I guess. The answer is no, I've never gone aground, which means that either you're lying or you've never sailed off a bar stool, or yes. And yes, I have gone aground, but I've always got off. Yeah, sometimes you need to scrape the barnacles off the worm shoe down there, and that's one way to do it.
Could I just say something?
Please.
Alex Thorne, and I'd just like to say that this is the reason that JB was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award from the American Sail Training Association for his many, many years of not just sailing, but the important part is how much he taught to so many people.
Thank you,
I-
Alex. I'm glad to see you. You're on the island, is that in the background? You're
I'm on the island, yes.
good.
Any more folks have some questions for JB? And feel free, you can either put it in the chat box or you can just take yourself off of mute and ask him directly. All right, what is the average wage salary range for the different positions?
Oh, my goodness. Well, it's changed, I think, a little bit since I was doing it, for the better, for the cruise aspect. I mean, when I was, most of the time with Ocean Classroom, I think the deckhands were getting $50 a week, maybe $100 a month, something like that. Of course, room and board, don't forget, room and board is very important. Room and board, and sailing, to going into faraway places, all part of the package. But I don't really know what it is now. It depends a lot on your experience and the actual programs. Don't expect to get a lot of money if you're in the educational boats, though, because you just don't have it to spend. They spend it on the programs and on the boats more. If you're really going for the big bucks, you're looking at yachts, that type of thing, or some of the deliveries, that type of businesses, if you're looking for more of the money aspect of it. But most of the educational vessels are, you can maybe make as much as a teacher does if you're on the upper, so whatever that is these days, you kind of get in the same kind of realm as a teacher, but then you get room and board when you're on board the boat.
And JB, is it more like per diem or do folks actually get a salary and benefits?
When I'm doing it, when I'm working, it's now per diem because I'm there for the short hauls. I mean, I just show up. I call it my rock star performances. Somebody needs somebody to show up, so I'll show up for a couple of weeks or a month or something like that. I'm going at it in Sullivan tomorrow. I'll be there for a month, and so that's a per diem. But the people who are there, like the AmeriCorps folks and any regular crew who are doing a whole season, they're usually on not a per diem. They're on about a monthly salary, and then the full-time people who are they go on a yearly salary. When I was working with Ocean Classroom, it was yearly salary.
Cool.
So they
Well,
have
one thing I'll on the wages, it's, as JB said, it's all over the map and you could make zero money. I was stunned not long ago. I was a deckhand on Ernestina in the late 80s, early 90s, and the deckhands today that they hire seasonally are making more than the captain made when I was there. Of course, that was a long time ago, but it's really a labor of love, but you can make a career out of it and once you get licensed and your credentials, and then your value and your pay tend to go up.
absolutely true. You're right. Yeah, but you look at what deckhands get paid now. Well, I've never considered getting some. What do they have to complain about? Getting all this money. But yeah, once you get licensed and work your way up, it's much more reasonable now. It's not quite as, if you're working your way up to the hawse pipe, as they say. I mean, that's what I did. I worked my way up to the hawse pipe. So the money part was not the biggest feature I was looking for. And I was looking for the experience and the sailing part of it and getting the sea time to get licensed and that type of thing. So again, that comes back to just what you can live on. If you're having to pay down student loans or something like that, it's probably not the best place to go for, some of these programs we've been talking about.
What are your thoughts about sailing schools like offshore sailing, those ASA and US sailing certification schools that qualify you to sail, 36 plus.
The international programs. I don't know a whole lot about the European programs and the international ones. That's a whole different kind of a realm, what they're doing over there. I mean, you can go sailing on some of those European boats, and that's great. Get some great experience that way, but I don't know about crewing on them. They may be more looking for nationals to do the crewing aspect of it. Well, yeah, I'm not sure about those certifications. I really only deal with the Coast Guard, US Coast certification.
Here's a personal question.
Yeah.
Do you own any boats?
Well, I just sold one actually to Matthew Bevels on that list there someplace. So I'm out of the sailing boat ownership now. That was a nice little Abaco sailing dinghy. But I do have a Lyman outboard. That's it. I like boats that are on trailers. So in terms of ownership now, I specialize on trailering boats, which I can stick in the garage when I need to. Not have to worry about moorings or anything like that. I have owned boats that I couldn't put in a garage, but not now. I go sailing on other people's boats. Sailing on other people's boats, by the way, is the cheapest way to go sailing. If you own a boat, it's a whole different category of things. You can be the captain of your own boat, so you can go around calling yourself captain, and nobody's going to argue because it's your boat. You might not get paid much for doing it. In fact, you might end up paying a whole lot more.
What was your favorite boat that you've ever sailed on?
Oh dear, people ask that question, and it's so hard to answer because each one has got its own unique situation, its unique cruise plan, so to speak, and unique characteristics. Every one of those boats that we've been talking about has its completely, no two are the same. The unicorn thing has always got a special place because it was the first one, right? And most recent one is Dennis Sullivan. So in between the two of them, they're completely different boats. I really like sailing the Marie Pierre that we were doing the transatlantics and sailing around Greece and Turkey in the summertime. That was pretty nice, and it's a great sailing boat. But it was not an educational boat. So you have all those ocean classroom boats that were doing the educational programs. You might not get paid a lot, but you could really feel good about what you were doing because you could see it right there in front of you. You could see the students coming around and that type of thing. That was part of the payoff anyway. Those are student programs. So it's hard to say which is the most favorite. I won't say which one.
Okay, no worries.
I like them all.
Yeah. Does anybody out here have any final questions for JB? Don't be shy.
I don't think you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
You can?
Yep.
Okay. I'm Martha. I was in college with Jonathan, and he was the first person to teach me to canoe, which I have done all my life. I was Martha Wade in college. What I remember is how patient you were with me. And I remember going out to the little islands where the shrimp beds were. And we would find all these little holes in the little alleys that would go up in there. And I would pull different things out of the little holes and take them back to the biology department for different people to tell us what in the world they might be. And there was some stuff that nobody knew what it was. Maybe you remember that. I don't know. But I've always remembered you, and also the time that you wrote me back immediately on how to save my turtle. And because he had been moved to a place in the basement by a child I knew. And I did manage to save him, and he lived a really long time. And eventually we put that land tortoise out where he could live in the land. So he got back out in nature. That's about all I have to tell you, except that I'm married for a second time to a Scotsman whose father was a sailor during the war, of course. And I met him while I was nursing in Saudi Arabia, which is another adventure altogether. I hope to see you again someday before we both leave here. I think we're probably both going to be here a long time yet.
Well, good to hear from you, Martha. Yeah, it's been a very long time. Well, I'm glad you had a positive experience there. Sailing out amongst those islands there in Bogosiega Bay, that was my escape valve, as I said before. You know, we'd do biological surveys out on those bays, yeah, mostly looking for things that we could go and cook up and eat, various conchs and so forth. But yeah, it was a good time. Good to
We
hear.
had a wonderful time on that porch group. Wonderful people, some of whom I'm still in touch with. I won't get too personal here, but Tommy and Marion in particular, the Prices. And my former husband, I'm still in touch with, Fergie. So that's about it. One kid, she's grown. She lives in New York. She's a real New Yorker, actress and all that. I'd love to sail. I don't know anyone around here. We live in Green Cove Springs, Florida. But if you ever dock in here, be sure to look us up.
All right.
I'll send you our information.
Great. All right. I look forward to seeing it.
Okay.
All right.
Look it.
Thanks, Martha.
Everybody, you got one more? Okay.
Yep, one more final vote for JB. My best sailing adventure was on his trip leading us up to Windjammer Days on Virginia. And totally, first time, nobody knew how it would handle for that kind of distance, calmness under fire. And I was there taking the photos, didn't get thrown off, didn't get kicked off, but I was glad to have him leading the way.
Yeah, that was a good trip. That was fun.
It sure was.
Well, lots of firsts on that trip over to Windjammer Days for sure. Not that anybody could really see us. It was so thick of fog the whole time that we had a lot of privacy.
Come see him. I just finished talking to him.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's nice.
yeah.
Okay, well, everybody, thank you so much for being here this evening. It'll be on YouTube in a couple days, and hopefully we'll see you in February, and you'll get to meet Phoebe Jekulek, lead scientist, Hurricane Island Center for Leadership and Science. So thanks, everybody. Have a lovely evening.
Fair winds.
Bye.
Thanks, JB.